Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's noon, so we'll go ahead and get started. So this is our fourth Lunch and Learn webinar. This one's on project schedules for public works. And we're going to go ahead and get started. The goal for these is to be a really brief overview on topics relevant to DBEs, brief and broad. And then for any further assistance you'd like on this topic, you can always get in touch with Ed Duarte afterwards for one-on-one counseling, or Liz Brazil, who's also on this call. So today we're going to start out by introducing ourselves. It's me, and Ed Duarte will be the presenter, so I'll let him give an introduction for himself, and then I'll briefly go over DBE Supportive Services. I think most of you are pretty familiar with that since you're enrolled in the program, but just as a reminder, and then we'll get started on the main content for this presentation. So I'm Taylor Bowes. I'm the program administrator for this DBE Supportive Services program, which is funded by Caltrans and hosted by Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation. And Ed Duarte is our presenter today. Ed, would you like to give a brief introduction?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Ed, and I'm a retired general engineering contractor, a civil engineer, ex-Caltrans engineer, but the family has been in the construction industry since 1950. And the last 36 years, I've had my own company, which was a general engineering contracting company in San Ramon. And our volume and workload has been 95 to 98% public works. So that's my background and what I bring to these webinars, to try to pass on a little bit of what I learned over the last 50 years in the business.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, so a little bit about the DBE Supportive Services program. Hopefully everyone on this call is pretty familiar already, but the main goal of this program is to help DBE certified firms be successful in the government marketplace, specifically on FHWA funded projects. So our goal is to help you be successful at submitting and winning bids on those projects. We have a monthly DBE newsletter that is sent out that includes bid opportunities, a blog written by Ed Duarte, upcoming events and workshops, and other relevant information we want our DBEs to know about. So if you don't receive those, please let me know and I'll make sure that you get added to that list. We do these Lunch and Learn webinars. Like I said, our goal is to do one monthly. If you have any ideas on topics that you'd like to hear about, please let me know. We are subscribed to govology.com, which is an online trading portal, and then our DBE clients get access to that for free. All the training is related to government procurement, and it's a really good resource for you. So if you'd like that information, again, please let me know. As I just mentioned, we have a DBE blog written by Ed Duarte. We put on contractor workshops throughout our service area. Again, those are put on by Ed. We do one-on-one counseling. You can work one-on-one with Ed. You can also work one-on-one with our DBE bid specialist, Liz Brazil, who is on this call. And with that, you get in-depth counseling on the whole bid submittal process. We will be actively searching for bid opportunities for you once we know about your business. We want to help you be successful. And then we also provide business plan assistance. Okay, now we're going to jump right into the main content for the webinar. I just wanted to mention briefly that even though these webinars are meant to be brief, we also would love to hear your questions, so please don't hesitate to ask questions. We'll save some time for that at the end. And Ed, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, today we're going to talk about project schedules and how they're implemented in public works construction contracts. And our objective is pretty simple. It's an overview on the requirements for the schedules in public works construction and I want to cover an introductory guide to the types of schedules required, but most importantly, the contractor's responsibilities and the impact that the schedule requirement has on both the prime and the subcontractor. So the state, Caltrans, Bay Area Rapid Transit, Alameda County Transit Authority, Santa Clara County, City of San Jose, any public agency, they have a basic requirement. And if you look at the bid documents for any and all public works funded construction projects for streets, roads, water treatment plants, schools, city halls, even hospitals, anything that's funded by public works, they have the same requirement. And it starts with of course, the description of the work and the engineer's estimate or the architect's estimate. And then they get down to the hard issues, and that's simply the contract time duration. Now, the contract time duration simply says, we want this project built in this amount of time. And they'll give you that parameter. They'll give it to you in 2 or 3 different ways. They'll have it in calendar days. And by that, they'll say you have 365 calendar days being every day of the week. So you have 1 year to build this project. Or they will say you have 180 working days. Working days in public works construction is defined as any weekday that is not a holiday. So if you have an average of 4 weeks per month, and 4 times Monday through Friday is 5 days, 4 times 5 is 20, and 20 times 8 is 160. So you have 160 hours in a given month. That is a second way that they'll define it, and it's always comes back to the working days. So let me restate that. I got off track a little bit. I said, so the working days are about 20 days per month. So if you have 80 working days in the contract defined, that means you have 4 months to do the job. And the final other way that they'll say is, we want this project completed by December 31st, 2019. So any one of those methodologies of defining the contract time will be written into the specs every time. And that's something that you subcontractors need to look at when you're looking at this job and you're considering bidding it. You need to look at that time duration and see if it makes sense. One of the things that I emphasize in the estimating workshops is that you need to do a self-analysis. Remember, as contractors, we're the judge of what things can be done in a certain amount of time. And I can't tell you how many times we've gone to a pre-bid job walk and the construction manager or the architect and the engineer says, okay, we want this job done in 120 working days, 6 months. And we look at the scope of work and we look at some of the items, equipment items, and all of a sudden a red flag pops up and says, wow, the pumps that are specified to be furnished and installed, they have a 12-week lead time. Well, 12 weeks is 3 months, and they want the job done in 6 months. Is that reasonable? And that's when the contractors are obligated to stand up and say at the bid walk, say, the time duration that you imposed on this contract that you're requiring for, it doesn't work. It's not feasible. The reason I'm making mention of this in detail is that this is such a common occurrence on every project. It's almost every time. Today's owners are focused on getting the thing built as quickly as possible. I'll give you a quick example. The 49ers Stadium was done in 2.5 years and cost $2 billion. 10 years ago, that would have been unthinkable that you could get it done in that amount of time. But being privately financed, they were able to work literally 7 days a week, 2 shifts a day. So to reemphasize, the point being that the time that's allotted for the contract is really important for everyone to be aware of. And for you who are A&E firms or construction managers, when you're first hired by an agency, it's your job to reach out to the contractors before bid day and get a reading on, is the time allotment reasonable? And if you're getting feedback from all the contractors that says, no, it's not, you need to take that back to your owner and apprise it. Because if you don't, I can guarantee you there's going to be more RFIs and claims on the project than anyone would ever want. Okay. The contract is also very clear that the prime contractor is the one who builds the schedule. On this worksheet, on this slide, the general conditions, it's something I like to include in most all of my workshops and webinars because it's a restatement of the facts. And the general conditions under Division 1 and the invitation to bid in the spec book, these will always be listed and they will be defined. You look down at the bottom of the left-hand column, you see contract completion time allowed and liquidated damages. Just a quick mention on the liquidated damages is simply, if you don't finish on time, you're going to be assessed a penalty or a liquidated damage of X dollars per day. And that amount will be deducted from your final payment for every day that you're late, unless you get an approved time extension. And it also, at the top of the second column, the type of CTM schedule required, it will tell you. Next. There's basically only 3 types of schedules. The big one is called the critical path method, a CPM. It's a time logic network of tasks showing the relationship between I have to do this before I can do that. And that's a simplistic way of saying it. And as you develop a time logic network, the schedule will show a path that any task on that path, if it's delayed, the project gets delayed. Because in every project, there will be some concurrent activities that can be done side by side, and one of them doesn't affect the progress of the work. In other words, it can be done at any time during the project. Excuse me. The critical path method is the accepted industry standard for monitoring progress on a construction project. And the 2 dominant softwares out there in the marketplace, the big one is Primavera P3. It's expensive, costs about $5,000 just for the software, and it costs about $1,700 a week per person for the training on learning how to use it. It's become such a cottage industry that now for the real big contractors, they often will bring in a specialist, a consultant. And this person's sole duty is to prepare the schedule with input from the management and monitor the schedule and update the schedule. So Primavera has done a very good job of marketing, and you'll probably find them on maybe 80% of the public works. By the way, because of the cost, they're typically used for the larger projects. And by larger, we kind of, an unofficial baseline would be 20 million. At 20 million and up, they'll move to the point where they specify Primavera is the only software we'll accept. Microsoft Project is the other large player. And Microsoft Project is typically used for projects that are under $20 million in value, down to as little as, say, $100,000 of value. If you get below a couple of $100,000 in value for the value of the construction contract, a bar chart will do. So a bar chart is typically only for those smaller jobs, short duration, smaller value, and simplistic, more simple scope of work. The 3-week look ahead is one that a lot of laypersons outside the business are not familiar with. And 3-week look ahead is simply an Excel spreadsheet that shows 3 weeks of work. In other words, 15 working days. And on the calendar will run across the top, and down the lower left-hand column, the contractor will list all of the tasks that they expect to complete in the coming 3 weeks. That tool is what's actually used by most superintendents and foremen to actually run the project, because they're looking at the maximum of 3 times. It becomes the project engineer, project manager. It's their duty to look at the big schedule and be taking care of things that are long lead items or submittals that need to go in, and they're integrated into the master schedule, if you will. But even the multi-million-dollar projects, they're managed on a 3-week look-ahead basis. So if it is one of those bigger jobs, you're going to have either Primavera, or you're going to have Microsoft, and you're going to have 3-week look-aheads. In fact, the 3-week look-ahead methodology will also be included in the specifications. Next. The schedule responsibility. It all comes back to the contractor, period. The prime submits the initial schedule to the owner for review and approval, and they have to update that schedule once it's approved. And the smart prime will seek input from the subcontractors. But as I mentioned a minute ago, because of this obsession with doing more in less time, most of your larger primes, they might say when they are low bidder and awarded the project, they'll send a notice to their subs. We've been awarded the project and we're going to start the schedule. Some of them might ask the subs for input, but not all do that, because they simply say, look, we have to be done by this date. We're building the schedule, and here's the time that we're going to allot to each task for each sub. The smart thing to do for subcontractors is, once you take a look at that job and you look at the plans and specs and you look at the contract time and you attend the pre-bid, is to say, when you turn in your sub-bid proposal, simply add another sentence and say, we based our bid on straight time, 40-hour weeks. We have no overtime included, and we need 6 weeks, we need 4 weeks, we need 20 days, whatever, to get our work done. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to get that amount of time, but it limits the prime from telling you you're going to have to get done no matter what, even if it does take overtime. Because you'll find most contractors, primes, if not all, are smart enough to see a project that is got a real tight time schedule. They're going to bid in some overtime. One of the common fallacies out there is that you can ask for a change order for overtime. Wrong. Overtime is never allowed as an extra unless the change order scope is true addition to the scope and cannot be completed within the original time frame. Then and only then will overtime be approved. So when, as a subcontractor, you get this project and you turn in your bid, you have no overtime in it, you didn't look at the contract time and see that this thing is going to take 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 journeymen on site working 5.5, 6 days a week just to meet the schedule, you're up a creek because you didn't exclude the possibility of overtime on your bid. And when the contractor says your schedule and you say, well, holy cow, we can't do this with our normal 2-person, 3-person crew in our normal 5-day week. I'm sorry, but that's too bad. You will staff the project as needed to meet the schedule. And if you don't, as a subcontractor, every prime will be tracking everybody on this master schedule. And anyone who holds up the work, that time will be logged in. And if and when the project finishes late, they will allocate the amount of delay to each trade that caused the delay. And you will pick up your share of the liquidated damages. So I don't know how any more serious, simple way to say that. So once that schedule is approved, we're all bound by it, primes and subs. Any delays need to be contractually allowed and approved or approved. And by that, you can add the owner can come and say, well, we want to add another 2 bays to the loading docks and to the warehouse. Well, that's going to take more time, and rightfully so. And the change order will include additional time as well as cost for the changes. That's the way you get a time extension. Next. I believe in being proactive, and I'm talking to the subcontractors. I hope we have a couple subcontractors with us today. The best practice is, number one, as I said, put the estimated time frame that you need to build the work in your bid proposal. And then immediately when you find out that the prime has listed you and you're part of the low bid team, I would send an email over and say, please send me your first draft of the schedule, and at right then and there again, re-offer your suggested durations for your portions of the work, because every subcontractor is going to receive a subcontract that specifically ties performance and compliance with the prime schedule. And there's no separate qualifications / conformance requirement for sub. Everybody is tied to the same schedule with the same amount of liability. The last comment being, subcontractors typically don't utilize any CPM software to build the schedule. And I say that with this qualification. If you're one of the big 3, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and you're on a $150 million job, yes, you need to build your own schedule. But what will happen is that the prime contractor will ask you to do that, and then they will incorporate it into the master schedule. But that, other than that type of the big trades, say for a $10 million library building, it's going to be, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's the typical subcontractors. There's no need to build this schedule using CPM software, because that's provided to you by the prime, and you can always see where you need to be and when you need to be there. Next. So again, some more recap that I include in all the webinars, because it's a reminder to all of you out there how the process works. The public contract code requires that the bids are open in public. 25,000 or more, they have to be bonded. Everything everything that you see there is a routine requirement for all of these projects. And again, reminding all of you subcontractors that you need to be bidding for plans and specs. You need to be competitive if you expect to win a contract. Speaking to you today who might be a prime, all of these requirements are without exception. So when we say it has to be bonded, you as the prime have to turn in not only the bid bond, which secures your bid and guarantees that you're going to sign the contract if you are low. And then you have to provide the performance and the payment bonds. I covered this in another workshop, but it bears repeating. The thing I'd like to close with is, before we get into questions, is just an emphasis on how these schedules apply. As I said, number one, the prime is responsible. Let me expand on that for a second. The owner and or construction manager, they do not have the right to tell the contractor how to bid the job, let alone how to build it. So by default, they cannot control the schedule. The schedule is the responsibility totally of the contractor. What they can do is review it and offer constructive criticism if the schedule looks out of whack, if it looks unrealistic. But the bottom line is, when it comes to the end, that schedule is solely the responsibility of the prime contractor. And finally, again, for you subcontractors that might be listening, I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you attend a pre-bid conference, look at those plans and specs, and decide within yourself, how am I going to bid this if I get the job? How am I going to build it? Because no one likes surprises. And unfortunately, there's so many variables that occur during a construction project in the public works sector that the emphasis on being prepared and having a complete overview of everything is really important. So with that, I'll end my presentation, and I hope some of you please ask some questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ed. So everyone, I went ahead and muted you all earlier just so we weren't receiving any feedback on the webinar, but please feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question, or you can use the chat box to type your questions, and we'll read them from there. Questions, anybody? Okay, well, we'll stay on the line for another 5 minutes or so. I'll let people think of their questions or type them out. Otherwise, you can go ahead and log off. Like I said in the beginning, if you want more in-depth assistance on this topic or other topics related to public works or Caltrans projects, please reach out to Ed. He will meet with you one. And we also have our DBE bid specialist on the line, Liz Brazil. She's always available to schedule one-on-one sessions with as well.
Looks like we still have 9 people on board. I hope if you have a question, feel free to ask it.
Does nobody have any questions? Okay, well, I don't want to keep everyone. It doesn't seem like people have questions, but if you do, and you just, for whatever reason, don't want to say it now, feel free to send us an email after this, and I'll be sending out the slides to all of our DBE enrollees right after this. Oh, it looks like we did get one.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I have a question. Products that I carry are usually safety and emergency products. So I have a question that most of the times these products don't come up in the construction. So, things that I would carry would be like evacuation chairs, also emergency lighting like chemical lighting or LEDs that have battery backup in them, but they don't normally come up in on the bid list, in the construction project. So do you know how I'd go about getting more visibility for products like that because it's when people see it, they're like, oh yeah, we need that, but it's not something that is normally thought of, prospectively in a build situation.
Are your products, so you're strictly a vendor?
Correct.
Yeah, no, they're not going to show up in the bid form because typically, I think what you're talking about is the type of equipment that the contractor might need during the course of construction to
Correct.
manage his operations safely. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even necessarily to manage the build operations safely. It's really more like even in the final, I provide, evacuation chairs in the case of, once the projects are built, whether it's a building to be able to evacuate people with mobility issues or to provide chemical lighting if systems fail. And but the thing is that once I show them and I get some visibility, I get questions about it. But the hard part is getting visibility to either sell into a sub or even into a prime that would want to actually put that throughout the construction project if they're building a building, not necessarily a road, but.
Yeah. Let me say this, and Liz, if you're still there, chime in after me, please. What you're talking about is the equipment that's needed after the facility is built and occupied.
Exactly.
And that's not, and so that's not going to have any bearing to what we're talking about today.
Okay.
That will never occur in the bid documents. But what they will occur is that you have access to this facility, this library or this clinic or this multi-purpose building is going to be opening on such and such a date. Mm-hmm. You need to they will have, because it's a public facility, they're going to have a website and they're going to have a contact point. And that's when you send your lead sheet listing your products along with an overview and your email saying, congratulations on your new facility. Have you thought about this? Blah, blah, blah. And then you can show up. But so, yeah, as a vendor, I think that would be the best approach. What do you think, Liz?
Yeah, another thing too is Caltrans is having a small business fair on August 28th where you can share some of your product information. There's going to be Caltrans buyers and other agencies out there. So that's going to be in Oakland. But another thing I wanted to share also is NorCal PTAC website just had added a new link. If you go down to DBE Supportive Services and click on DBE Procurement, there's public agencies such as County of Alameda, Santa Clara, and other public agencies that may need some of your products. So if you have your capability statement completed, you may want to reach out to them and register on their website. And
Okay.
also, there's contact information there where you can submit your capability statement of the type of products that you provide.
Okay, and that was under the DBE Supportive Services, DBE Procurement, and then right under DBE Procurement, that was where I would find that?
Yeah, it says public agency information,
Okay,
and it has all the links of all the public agencies in the Bay Area, including county offices.
okay,
And if you'd like to learn more how to navigate, you can set up DBE initial consultation with me.
okay,
And it's with www.calendly.com/Liz_Brazil. And I can walk you through some of those websites.
okay. www.calendly.
.com
Okay,
/Liz_Brazil.
okay, that's /. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yes.
okay, okay.
All right, thank you for that question. We have one more on the chat box I want to make sure to get to. Ed, it says, do you have any resources for the bar chart or 3-week look ahead?
Yeah, I can send a sample of that. All you have to do is contact me, ed@norcalptac.org. And
Okay, great.
request that, and I'll send it to you.
Okay. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. I'll send out a follow-up email with both Ed and Liz's contact information, as well as the slides for this webinar. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.